Harry, the only thing more moist than this weather is you when Company smacked one into the top corner against Leicester. It's the end of season review of the Football Natter.
Have you missed us?
So, Harry, what are we talking about this week?
We are going to be talking about the English teams, how they fared in their domestic leagues, how they fared in Europe, and how they fared in all cup competitions.
Now, that sounds like one hell of an end of season review, and so let's not waste any time in getting into it. So obviously the football season is now finished, and well, the Football Natter is going to be taking a break in the off season, but we could not go without doing the much promised end of season review, where we give you our thoughts on everything that's happened this season, some of the key moments, some of our most favourite moments, and of course, what a way to end the season it was with the Europa League and Champions League. But Harry, let's start with the Premier League, and what I want to start off with is a little question to you. Who's the team you are most surprised by in the Premier League this season?
I think if we're looking for teams who surprised in a bad way, Fulham, probably. Like, I thought Fulham were going to push for maybe like 10th position, 11th position, yet they failed with flying colours. And obviously, we're always going to link it back to that £100 million figure that is flown around so much, like they spent that much money on transfers at 19th place. Not to mention they have a great fan base, great support, great stadium, and it just really wasn't good for them. I just couldn't believe my eyes. I thought they'd brought in quality. But obviously I was wrong, especially if Callum Chambers is your best player of the season. Jesus Christ. Although I did think that Ryan Babel was pretty phenomenal. And I hope he goes on to do some good things next season for whoever he plays for. I thought he could have stayed in the Championship, but obviously they couldn't afford his wages or something like that. So, for the wrong reasons, it would definitely be Fulham for their poor finish. But if I'm talking about teams who surprised for the best, it's quite a tough question because it was kind of as I expected with the top six, and Wolves, I was expecting them to come 7th, but I guess I could say Leicester actually surprised me in that they've managed to have such great continuity. As in that as soon as they've won that title, they haven't gone back to struggling. They've just managed to consistently push for that kind of 7th, 8th kind of position. And that, you've got the likes of Wolves now with a lot of money, Everton, who are always setting out to get European football. But Leicester are always there. And they've had some real quality. Like James Maddison stepped up much higher than I ever thought he would. I didn't think he'd have that much of an impact, but he did. Jamie Vardy's still scoring so many goals for his age. It's brilliant. Like Leicester have surprised me in that they've got such great continuity, and they're still exactly where you'd want them to be in that 7th, 8th spot.
I'd 100% agree with you with what you've said about Fulham there. When you come into the Premier League and you spend £100 million on transfers. And, they weren't bad transfers. You've got Sergio Rico, yes, on loan, but a fantastic goalkeeper from Spain. You've got, good young strikers like Luis Vieto. Obviously, you're signing Mitrovic permanently. And, in January, you're bringing in players like Ryan Babel. But I think as soon as they brought him in, it was, yes, it was a great signing. And it was a good signing of intent that they really wanted to stay in the Premier League. But it was at the end of the day, it was a poor appointment to bring in Ranieri. It was a dying ship. I don't think Ranieri really is the kind of manager to save a club from relegation. He was great with Leicester when they were kind of mid-table, and they just needed some stability, and he took them up to the Premier League in that fantastic magical season. But Ranieri wasn't the right man to bring in. Jokanovic, I'm disappointed that he couldn't make anything of the Premier League, because I do believe in him as a manager. I really like the way he plays, and when Fulham got promoted, they were playing some fantastic football. Brilliant football. Really nice presence, but in the Premier League, their style of football just doesn't work. And, it's going to be interesting to see next season, particularly with the teams like Sheffield United, coming up, who've got such a distinctive way of playing, how that's going to adapt to the Premier League. But Fulham going forward, Scott Parker's the right man for the job, I think. His first big management job, but I think he's got the support of the fans, he's got the support of the board, obviously. So, they are going to be looking to automatically bounce back. We're going to see a lot of players leave. It was said today that Ryan Sessegnon has turned down a new contract, so he's going to be moving on. But actually, I mean, we'll probably see a Premier League club come in for him, but he's one player I was really disappointed with this season. He had such a good season last year, playing left back, left wing back, striker, left wing. Such a good season, but he just couldn't adapt. People were talking about taking him to the Euros in 2016, but he just couldn't adapt. He was just marked out of the game, and he couldn't really make an impact. And you could say, yes, he's been playing in a struggling Fulham side, and maybe in a team like you said with Leicester, in how quickly they counter-attack, like with players like Damari Gray, that he would thrive. And maybe we are going to see him join a team like Leicester or Watford or somewhere where he can, kind of get freedom on the ball and not have the pressure of having to run back because you're going to concede a goal, because Fulham's defence was awful. And the fact that a defender, Callum Chambers, got their player of the season, I mean, that is just that's actually abysmal. That is just ridiculous. But in terms of probably the team which most surprised me in a good way was probably Watford, because obviously everybody expected. We know what Watford's like, how they sack managers left, right and centre. This is their 7th manager in the last few years. The idea was that he'd last until Christmas and then he'd be off. But actually, what a job the Watford management team have done this season. You're getting the best out of players like Troy Deeney and Andre Gray. Players who Andre Gray, yes, he was great at Burnley, but it was kind of a sideways move maybe. But actually, Andre Gray's had a fantastic season in the scheme of things at Watford. Players like Pereira and Will Hughes and Ben Foster, whoever the goalkeeper coach is at Watford, needs a medal because he's turned Ben Foster into Manuel Neuer. Honestly, he has been one of the best goalkeepers outside the top 6 this season. Absolutely incredible, and he really did deserve to be in some kind of team of the season, whether it's team for most improved players, because the keeper who was relegated with West Brom has come back into the Premier League. He's added a lot of experience and a lot of kind of strength to Watford's spine, and he's been a key part to their success. And hopefully, we can have a great season next season. And alongside him goes Fabianski, who's been fantastic for West Ham and probably saved West Ham a lot of points and actually helped them get around that 10th place spot. In terms of disappointment, considering how they started, Bournemouth have been very disappointing for me. I really thought that they were going to push for 8th or 9th all season and really kind of push like Watford have been doing for Europa League all season, whether or not off at the end, but you can't take away the hard work from all the Watford players. But Bournemouth have had a very poor second half of the season. Very, very poor. Callum Wilson can't seem to find the net. Players like Ryan Fraser have kind of dropped off. David Brooks, who looked so bright in the early part of the season, kind of withering out. And, maybe you can give him a bit of slack. It's his first season in the Premier League coming from Sheffield United. But actually, hopefully next season he's going to want to kick on, because otherwise, half a season wonder isn't a good enough player for a team like Bournemouth, who, they have got the smallest ground, but they've been in the Premier League for a few years now. They're getting the same money that other clubs around them are getting. They've now got financial stability. They've got a billionaire Russian owner in Max Denham. They've got the strength and the financial power to go forward. I know they're trying to re-up their stadium, but it's not like Tottenham who are spending nearly £1 billion on it. They are going to have the finance to go forward, and I think this is going to be a big transfer window for them, because Bournemouth is exactly the kind of team where they're really good mid-table solid team, but then they don't have a very good transfer window in the summer, and suddenly you see them on the brink of relegation, like we've seen with Southampton, selling their good players but not having good transfer windows and not replacing those players with players who can come into a good standard but get even better. And that's how Southampton have thrived. And so hopefully under Ralph Hasenhüttl, next season and this summer, we are going to see some quality players coming to Southampton and really allowing him to take Southampton forward and bring the club back fighting for European football like they were under Claude Puel a few years ago.
Yeah, I think when we talk about Bournemouth, for them, the transfer window, a lot of it is going to be about maintaining rather than purchasing. So I think that it's necessary for them to keep Brooks, it's necessary for them to keep Fraser, because he's going to surely have a lot of attention in the window as easily one of the best wingers of the season. And keeping Callum Wilson as well, which is going to be difficult. But I think Bournemouth should be alright, because I think they've got a good core of players. I think their style is still quite solid. You did see some good results, 4-0 against Chelsea obviously being the highlight. And I think that Bournemouth will be okay. It's just that again, like, Watford, they need to take a leaf out of their book. How did they gain a bit more consistency this season? They need to look at that, and they need to try and emulate it. And Southampton, yeah, maybe they could push. I think they're going to do well, because I've heard a lot of people saying they think Southampton are destined for relegation next season. But I really don't know what they've been watching, because under Ralph Hasenhüttl, it's just been completely different. And if they get relegated, I will be shocked. Nothing short of that, because I'm expecting them to go up and nothing but up next season. But talking about teams that might struggle next season, I think you see with the teams that get promoted, there's always one that kind of struggles to fund their way. And last season that was Cardiff, right? Because you saw they were buying a lot of Championship players. They were hoping the best of the Championship would be good enough for the Premier League. Didn't quite work out for them. It was all right. And I think that Sheffield United might struggle. And that's because Sheffield United isn't a club that's going to attract a lot of big players. Yeah, they had quite a decent season, of course, for them. But I think it's going to be a real struggle coming up into the Premier League. Norwich, as well, they might have a similar issue, because Norwich are the definition of a yo-yo club. They come up, they go right back down. But on the other hand, I think Aston Villa will stay. And that's because they are a big club. They've got a great history. They can attract players, and they've already got some real stars. Jack Grealish, probably one of the players of the Championship season. If they could get Tammy Abraham for a second season running, that would be fantastic. Although, of course, Chelsea with their transfer ban might want to keep hold of him.
Well, on the topic of the transfer ban, they have put in a repeal request to the board of football club, like financial conduct, and I don't really see it being turned around. And I think Chelsea, unlucky for Aston Villa, Chelsea are going to probably need Tammy Abraham to stay. They're going to need to utilise the youth that they've got with Hudson-Odoi and Tammy Abraham to have a chance of getting top six, because I think it's going to be a real struggle for them. Sarri looks like he's on the way out. He obviously doesn't want to stay. I think that's been clear all season. He's kind of fallen out with the squad and fallen out with the fans, and they've had a great season, and we're going to get onto that a bit later on. But I think just in terms of a long-term approach, he isn't the right man for Chelsea, and so we'll see what happens with them in the summer. But on the topic of Sheffield United, I think Sheffield United, I think you're wrong about them. I think honestly, I think Norwich will go down. I think Aston Villa will probably be solid, 12th, 13th, that's solid. But I think Sheffield United, they might be in a relegation battle all season, but I think they're gonna survive, just for the fact they already play with a back five, which is naturally tougher to break down and tougher to get through. They've played with a back five for consistent seasons. They know that system really, really well. You're right. Yeah, they are going to have to make some good, solid signings, and I honestly believe they are going to make some good solid signings. And if they get players like Dean Henderson, I'd love to see him in the Premier League from Manchester United on loan. I'd love to see him in the Premier League. He's a great young English goalkeeper. And I think Billy Sharp. They are going to struggle to score in the Premier League, but I just think they're the kind of team which just go on momentum, and they get a few wins together in the Premier League, and they're going to honestly be hard to stop. But you talked about the Championship there. Let's move on to the Championship now. Obviously, we know the promoted teams, with Aston Villa winning the EFL playoff final at Wembley, and well, you've just said how you think their season's going to go. But what about the teams which have dropped down into the Championship? How do you see Fulham, Cardiff, how do you see Huddersfield getting on?
I actually think Fulham are coming right back up. And that's because they've got the infrastructure. And if you're a Championship club, when you have that infrastructure, it just helps you so much, because it means you have the money, it means you already have some of the players, and you have the right kind of coaches and coaches, anything you need there to help you get back up. And I think Fulham have that, and they have a good mentality at the club. It's a club that wants to do well, they want to push on, and I think they're really disappointed. They're going to look at that last season, they'll be like, we wanted to make a statement, not go falling right back down. And if they can just get Scott Parker on for a long period of time, make sure he instills his values into the players, you could be looking at a team that are going to have instant success. And I think that some of the players who have dropped down to the Championship can thrive. And I know they're going to lose probably Sessegnon, but others are going to do much better. As for Cardiff, no, I can't see them coming back. But for them, I think they'll just want to gain stability because that was a bit of a wild ride. And they did pretty well, I thought. 18th is respectable considering it's Cardiff, and they put up a really good fight. And Huddersfield, I don't know. I think they've got a decent manager. I think Jan Seivert's all right, but they've not got many good players. I think for them it will just be a little bit like when Hull got relegated last time from the Premier League, where it was quite a tough season. They didn't have a lot of great players, and I think they could struggle next season. Like, I'm talking probably lower end of the table, but I hope not, because I do really like Huddersfield. And we saw in their game against Man United, there's still a spark of quality there.
I mean, what you talk about Cardiff there, I think Neil Warnock never expected to get to the Premier League in the first place. And I think, actually, with VAR in the Premier League, if Cardiff had just got promoted and they had exactly the same season next year, I think they would have stayed up. I generally think with VAR, some of the decisions that went against them, like against Chelsea, that was such a big game. That was a defining game in their season. If they'd beaten Chelsea, they may well have got the momentum and actually stayed up, won their next couple of games. I think, honestly, that killed them. And, Neil Warnock admitted that. And, what has been nice from Neil Warnock this season is that he's been the most honest, clear manager in the whole league. He's been very honest. He's not there to say that he wants mid-table football. He's there he's there enjoying the ride. He's getting to the end of his management career now. He said he's going to stay on at Cardiff next season. I think that's a massive thing for them if they want to gain top 10 championship stability, which I think they will do. I think they might flirt with the playoffs again. I think they've still got players who, after playing for a season in the Premier League, are going to have a lot more quality and a lot better mental fitness in terms of how to manage a game just by being in the Premier League for one season. So I think, their players are going to learn a lot, and I think they may well flirt with, promotion from the Premier League again. And if they do, it'd be absolutely fantastic. And, Neil Warnock has done a fantastic job at Cardiff City. He's brought the Cardiff City fans back in love with their football club. After all the problems last time in the Premier League with Malky Mackay and Vincent Tan, Tan's still there, but I think he's very much kind of conceded a little bit the fact that he's not going to be able to do what he wants. And, if he honestly... I think he's become aware of the long-term Cardiff City and how important that is rather than just what he wants to do for the club. And so I do actually think that Cardiff are going to do really well next season. And, I hope we may well see them in the Premier League again. But coming up into the Championship after a very, very good season is Luton Town, as well as Barnsley, and through the playoffs, Charlton. Fantastic seasons for them. But talking about an end-of-season review, let's review Sunderland. 5th, bottling it at Wembley, spending 3-4 million on Will Grigg in January, and in barely scoring a goal. What on earth is going on up north?
Well, that was unbelievable. Watching that, just seeing the look on their faces as they fell to Charlton, just as they did, of course, in that, that legendary game. I couldn't believe it. Sunderland, look at it, like they can't be in League One. Like that club is huge. You're seeing some real big attendances for their games. They've got players who should be in the Championship at the very least, and they're still in League One, like second consecutive season, and it's an embarrassment really. And I don't know what they're going to do now, because if they don't come up, then Jesus, they're just not going to have the money anymore, are they? Because the fans deserve more, and that they didn't play that well in that game. They didn't play that well at all. Charlton were not the best, but they were much better. And yeah, Sunderland is a bit of a failure. I'm waiting for the next documentary.
I'll tell you what, I cannot wait for that. See the Sunderland fans crying at Wembley twice in the same season. They lost to Portsmouth in the playoff in the Johnson's Paint Trophy final, or Checker Trade, whatever it's called now. And they lost in the playoff final in the 95th minute to a header from the centre-back bar. Honestly, I could not be happier, because to see Sunderland fans and their arrogance at the start of the season going, oh, we're going to buy the league. Oh, we're too good for League One. We're going to win it by Christmas. Ha ha! You finished 5th after an awful run, and you should have won the league by 25 points by April. It should have been done, dusted. The budget, you're still getting parachute payments from the Premier League for your awful relegation a few seasons ago. You brought some of the best talent. You've got some of the best talent in George Honeyman in the lower leagues. You've got players with such experience like Lee Catamol. And, to think that you just haven't, yes, well done for getting near promotion, but you should have had the league wrapped up. It's ridiculous. I think they drew like 15, 16 games in the season. And that's just, and it's just holding on to games. To go 1-0 up so late in the game against Peterborough, late on in the season, when points are really at it, to go 1-0 up in the 86th minute, but be pulled back to a draw in the 91st, in that side, there are players which know how to manage games. And the fact that the manager hasn't been able to get the most out of those players, is something to contend, and it looks like he's going to keep his job, and he's going to go out again next season. But you look at some of the signings clubs around them are already making. So Peterborough, for example, they're already signing players like Mark Beavers with automatic promotion experience from League One. They're signing players like Dan Butler from Newport County, who's one of the best left backs in League Two last season. And you're seeing them spend 1.4 million on Mo Isa, a player who a couple of seasons ago scored 25 goals in League Two, a player with pace and just a natural ability for goal scoring, who, given the service of players like Madison in that Peterborough team, are going to be deadly on attacking wise. So you've got teams getting stronger around Sunderland, and League One is such a tough league to get out of. And I think Sunderland are really noticing that now. And they're going to have a fantastic bit of summer transfer business if they are to go again. And if they are, as they should do, get automatic promotion and get back into the Championship, so they have a chance of getting back to the Premier League. They're a huge club. They shouldn't be where they are. It's very disappointing. And to think now, with the recent news, that Donald, the owner, is actually going to sell his majority share in the club, shows that, does anybody actually want to be at Sunderland?
Probably not. Touching on that Peterborough signing of Isa, I saw the BBC, they put out quite a mocking article saying this is a man who's played 7 games last season and he's their record signing. Bit pathetic. And I thought, is it? Because if you remember, when Peterborough brought in Britt Sombalonga, who had a lot of experience for them, and he became a bit of a club legend whilst he was there. And I remember, because I've seen a few Peterborough games, and just the fans loved him. And he would score a lot of goals, over 30 goals in a season, and he was just a cult hero, obviously then getting a big Championship move, and then another one. And if it weren't for injury, I think we'd see him in the Premier League right now, honestly. But, yeah, so, BBC, bit of bias there, no different. But, yeah, I mean, if we're looking back towards the top of everything, Champions League, Europa League, how our teams did this season, it's great for the league overall, because to get all 4 teams in the finals, that's great. And for example, if you look at both Liverpool and Tottenham, because it's important to look at both teams, both of them, it's quite incredible they even got there. Tottenham had 1 point from their first 3 games in the group stage, and they got to the final. And that was through integrity, fight, and desire. And they played some incredible football against the likes of Ajax, against all the teams that they had to face in the knockout stages, Man City, and Liverpool, absolutely the same. To come down from 3-0 on aggregate against Barcelona and get to that final was unbelievable. The final itself, it was really bad, yeah, but it was 2 English teams who hadn't played in 3 weeks, and the fitness levels were at the absolute worst. I think I heard a lot of people saying Tottenham were the better side, but I don't necessarily agree. I think that yes, they had more possession, yes, they had more shots, whatever, but at the end of the day, when Liverpool had the ball, they were stronger. And for me, the defining thing for Liverpool is their shape. Their team shape was so much better than Tottenham's, and deserved winners, if you ask me. And as for the Europa League final, quite tightly contested in the first half, but then Second half, complete collapse from the Arsenal defence, and that is what it was. It was just a complete collapse from the Arsenal defence. Yeah, some magic from the likes of Hazard, but yeah, both European finals were a little bit disappointing. But at the end of the day, the fact that 4 English teams reached there is great for the Premier League, and every team that got there were completely deserving, if you ask me.
Well, I'll tell you what, they are probably two of the worst European Cup finals you'll ever see. If we speak about the Europa League first, I mean, I watched the game live on BT Sport, and do you know what? Arsenal had a very good go first 25 minutes. They did look the more dangerous side, but Chelsea did really well to kind of come under that pressure. They ended the half quite strongly. Emerson, I thought, was fantastic. Fantastic at left back. And, second half, it went in, even, and you thought, is there actually ever going to be a goal in this game? Because when both teams went forward, they were playing the ball about nicely, but there wasn't really a proper clear-cut chance for either side. And Chelsea came out, and you know what? They really showed that they wanted that. Whatever Sarri said to them in that dressing room at half-time worked, because they came out, they looked hungrier. And, Arsenal just looked tired. And, considering Unai Emery, who's almost this master of winning Europa League, Chelsea have already got Champions League. They didn't need to turn up 100% in that final. Yes, they've got a European Championship to play for, and they would have wanted that. But in terms of making sure that they get European football next season, it wasn't all on the line like it was for Arsenal. Arsenal, if they want to get better, they've got to get Champions League football. If they'd won Europa League and got Champions League football, you can't help but think some of the players they might have been able to bring in, which they now don't have the chance to. So, it should have been do or die for Arsenal, and they just collapsed. The stadium in Baku was just no atmosphere. The fact that UEFA was even playing it in Baku, that made Mkhitaryan not even be able to play because Azerbaijan have such a bad thing against Armenians. Just how UEFA can choose a city like that who are so backwards in their views against some people. And so they were playing the game at 11:30 midnight local time. Does UEFA honestly expect local fans to turn up and to even give 6,000 tickets to Arsenal and Chelsea fans each in a 68,000-seater stadium? They were just asking for trouble, and at the end of the day, the UEFA need to really sort themselves out. Look, when they realised it was an all-English final, could they not have said, well, let's just change the venue to London? Because I'll tell you what, if that final had been held at Wembley in front of 90,000 fans from either side, the atmosphere would have been absolutely incredible, and we may have seen a different result to the game. But Chelsea, in the end, deserved winners, and a parting gift from Hazard, who said, it probably is the end of his time here, and we are expecting an announcement from Real Madrid to say that he signed for them in the next coming days, so we'll see what happens there. But onto the Champions League final, both, as soon as Liverpool got that goal early on, they were always going to sit back, because they could sense that Tottenham were tired. They themselves were tired. It was very hot in Madrid. It was hard to manage in terms of your game, in terms of your energy levels. An atmosphere they're not used to playing in. So both teams did well, and both Tottenham and Liverpool did create good chances. But I just felt Liverpool did so much more with their possession. Even when they didn't have the ball, they were closing Tottenham down, forcing them back, and as soon as Liverpool were winning the game, just on the edge of Tottenham's box, almost all of the game. They'd really got Tottenham pressed in, and so they had to go long. But the fatigue Kane, the Kane who's coming back from injury and isn't 100% yet, and won't be 100% until the start of next season, just couldn't get on the end of anything, and so Son was quite disappointed for me. I didn't really see much of a bright spark. Didn't have the ball played to him really at all. And so as soon as Salah scored that penalty, Liverpool were always going to be determined to sit back, really sit on that lead, because they knew that if Tottenham did score, they'd have the energy, and they, who are wearing Tottenham down, would be able to win the game. But, what a great moment for Origi as well, a player who almost looked out of Jurgen Klopp's plans at Liverpool to come back, and realistically win the Champions League for Liverpool in front of the thousands of Liverpool fans. And in terms of the season they've had, Liverpool 100% deserve this European Championship. And next season, Manchester City and Liverpool have really got to switch roles, because Liverpool have got to go for the league while they've got this team and they've got this momentum. And I do believe that this is going to be the start of quite a good run of trophies, I think, for Liverpool. I think we could see them winning the League Cup next season. I think we could see them winning the FA Cup. I think domestically, they've got to really nail down some trophies and make this era of football, this team of players, a massive, massive success. Make this a little bit of their golden generation, like they had in the 80s, like they had in the 70s with players like Kenny Dalglish and Ian Rush in the side. So this has got to be the moment for Liverpool to really say, right, we've got an amazing team. We've got the best centre back in the world. We've got the best fullbacks arguably in the world. We've got one of the best wingers in the world. We've got one of the best kind of groups of players in the world. They've won the Champions League. They are technically the best team in Europe. They've got to make that count in domestic football. But Manchester City, on the other hand, have got to say, right, so we've done everything in domestic football now. We've won the league twice in a row. We've won the FA Cup. We've won the Carabao Cup. They've won the Community Shield. The reason Manchester City, and I've said this all season, the reason City brought in Pep Guardiola was because they wanted a Champions League in their cabinet. Manuel Pellegrini could have stayed at City and got them leagues, got them Carabao Cups, got them FA Cups every season. But they didn't want that. They didn't want to settle on that. So Pep Guardiola currently, technically, has been a failure at Manchester City. Some of the City fans are getting bored with the league. And as stupid as that sounds to some of the clubs, winning the league every season doesn't make you happy as a football fan, because all it makes you do is want you to go that one step further, and that one step further for Manchester City is the Champions League. They haven't even won a Europa League, so they need to go for the Champions League. They need to sacrifice the league, just get top four. They've got the quality and the strength and depth to get top four easily, but Pep Guardiola has to say to his players, right, we've got to go for it now. We cannot be hanging about just winning the league and just winning the Carabao Cup every season. These fans want something more. They deserve something more for sticking with us. And I really hope that, for England's sake, another English side wins the Champions League next season. I think that'd be amazing to see. So, what do you make of where Liverpool and where Manchester City go from here?
The only difference I'd say is I don't think City have to sacrifice a league. I think they just need to win everything at once, again. Except because that is what he's there for. He's there to build an unstoppable team. A team that is unstoppable. Every single game they play, they expect to win. It's like when Barcelona had that incredible team that could literally win absolutely anything. They're just trying to recreate that at Man City. And they want them to have the fitness to win on all fronts. And I think that that's possible. I think they are the best team in our country. And, to beat a team who've got 97 points in the league is astonishing. 98 points this season, 100 the season before. They're not slowing down. And I think the domestic cups, they played really well in those. They got to keep that up. They got great depth of squad, like incredible depth. And they will want to win that. Quarterfinals of the Champions League, not far enough. They need to push through this time. They might need some better luck, obviously, against Tottenham. That luck was not in their favour. But if they have some better luck this coming season, I think that, they're serious contenders. I had them down at the start to be the winners, and I think that they can definitely do it. If they win everything, it will be the first team to do it, might be the last team in a long time. So that's what it's going to be for City. Liverpool, as you said, it's going to be about making that golden age. We need to see them keep it up. They've got some momentum, so how are they going to carry it forward? I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to retain the Champions League for them. I think either team, whoever would have won it, it would have been incredibly difficult to retain. So we'll see where it goes for them. I think, I agree. I think domestic cups, they got a good shot at those. League, maybe a bit of a struggle, but we'll see. They've got great team, great players.
And so, before we end this, just a quick note to Bayern Munich, obviously winning the Bundesliga, beating Dortmund to it, and it shouldn't have happened. Dortmund bottled it essentially in the end. They've had it in their hands for most of the season. As soon as you lose a few games on the trot in a competitive league like the Bundesliga, you do fall away from the top. And one thing is Eintracht Frankfurt, another fantastic season for them, top 4 in the Bundesliga this season. But Luka Jovic has gone for 60 million to Real Madrid. So, possibly, looking like the Benzema replacement. Benzema, it's been argued that Benzema's out the door, at Real Madrid for years now. So, he's probably just gonna go back to France and die. Let his career die at Lyon or something. But Harry, one player I would like to talk about is Gareth Bale. Zinedine Zidane openly coming out and saying I wouldn't play him if I didn't have to, saying that he doesn't belong at Real Madrid anymore. Where next for Gareth?
Retirement home in Wales, the Sheep Lodge. I don't know. It's really a good question that you've posed, because where? Who wants him? I don't want him at Tottenham. I wouldn't want him at Man United. I wouldn't want him at Chelsea. I wouldn't want him. Because at the end of the day, he's an ageing player. One, he's shown some real inconsistency for Real Madrid. And he's also got extremely high wage demands and an extremely high transfer fee. So he's just that player who's he's very awkward. I don't know where next for him. I've absolutely no clue. Bayern Munich? I think they want younger players, but I'm just trying to think of any team as a money. So who do you think, just out of curiosity?
I think it might be someone like PSG. Someone where there's not pressure to win anything other than the Champions League, because usually the league's backed up with their second team. So I just think it's got to be someone like PSG who can afford him and aren't necessarily bothered that they're not going to play him a lot, because PSG essentially is all about this big brand image. They've got obviously the partnership with Jordan, which is massive in America in terms of a brand deal. When you've got big players like Neymar and Mbappe wearing these branded Jordan PSG shirts, in terms of globally, that makes the club worth so much more money. And to be fair to PSG, what a fantastic job the owners have done there, because to bring PSG into this global brand and into this almost European superpower, yes, they've got to go one step further and win that Champions League now. And that's why we always put them in the frame, considering the players they've got, players like Mbappe. I just think maybe that with Cavani getting older, bringing in Gareth Bale might allow them to play Mbappe up front and really because I think long term Mbappe should be a striker, a bit like Henry. And so I think long term, bringing in Gareth Bale now would really allow Mbappe to solidify his position at the top of that PSG team and actually really, really become the world's best player. Because with Messi getting older, with Ronaldo getting older, Mbappe is the next Golden Ball winner.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to agree on PSG in particular, just because towards the tail end of the Ligue 1 season, they were one of the worst teams in the whole league. They were losing frequently. I don't know if you saw any of their games, but the defence was more shaking Anthony Joshua's legs the other night. It was so bad. I was watching them and I was like, what is going on? They were just letting all the teams penetrate through that defence, score easy goals. And I was like, hang on, there needs to be a change here. And so change there will be. And I'm sure Gareth Bale would suit that. Obviously they're going to have to look more defensively also. But going forward, they will want Mbappe to be the striker. They will want to be winning all their games 7-0 because it's Ligue 1. It's all that kind of thing. But also, I talk about Serie A. Congratulations to Atalanta for getting in the Champions League for the first ever time. Duvan Zapata, what an absolute beast he was up front. They've got some really good players. Also in midfield, Gomez was really, really good this season. And Daron also, of course, he beat England last night with the Netherlands. All had really good seasons. So, well done, Atalanta. And it's been quite an interesting season across Europe, really, hasn't it? But let's see if there's going to be any underdogs who win it next time, like that time when Monaco actually beat PSG.
Well, we'll see. And next season is going to be one hell of a season. And who knows, for the teams, who knows, for the Football Natter. And so, for this season, the fact that this podcast has come such a long way in, just 6-7 months is fantastic. And to all those listeners, we want to say a massive thank you to everyone who shares the podcast, who tells their friends about it, their neighbours, Turtle, and all of those, all of their mates. Thank you so much. Of course, who knows? Me and Harry are both off to uni, so we're going to be back at the start of the season. Don't you worry about that. Don't you worry about that. But who knows for after? We're gonna keep it going. The Football Natter will never die. Never. Don't send us any cards yet, because we are sticking around for a while. Don't book the coffin, because we are gonna resurrect. Don't you worry about that. And so you can of course find this episode on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as the latest 3 on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. And of course, it has been a fantastic season, and it's been fantastic to share it with you, our thoughts and our views, and we hope you've enjoyed it too. We've certainly loved being able to make these week in, week out. And so for one final time this season, it's goodbye from Harry.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.